Hi everyone, it's Tiffany with Ready, Set, Create. Welcome back to my 12 by 12 days of Christmas. I'm showing you 12 days of tips, tricks, and techniques for your holiday scrapbook layouts. Today is day 5. Let's get started. I'm starting with this piece of close to my heart paper that was in my stash, and I am gutting the center by going down about 1 inch on all 4 sides and cutting out that center square, and I'll just be left with a frame to go around my layout. And this is a technique that I do pretty often. If I'm going to have a large portion of that background covered, then I'll just trim that section out. It takes away some of the bulk in my scrapbook, and then I can use that big chunk of paper for something else. So now I'll take this white piece of paper and trim it down to an 11.5 inch square. So I'm just going to trim 1 inch off of 2 sides, and that will be my background. The most important thing to remember when you're doing this technique is to only put adhesive along the edges. I oftentimes would put an X across the center of the layout, and because it's a frame, there's nothing behind it to adhere to, so then you end up sticking it to your work surface. So just put adhesive along the 4 sides of that background and then place it on your frame. And this layout is inspired by a Taylor Swift Christmas song called Christmas Must Mean More. And there's a line in the song that says, put a wreath on your door. And I was listening to it, and it made me think, oh, I want to do something with a door and a wreath for a layout. So it's an idea that's in my head. I'm going to try it out and see if it works. I grabbed this beige piece of paper, and I am trimming 4 rectangles to be my doors, and they are 3.5 by 4 inches, I believe. And it's a piece from my stash, and it's a really thick piece of cardstock, so I have to do a couple of cuts each time. But I'm going to make 4 little doors that'll go across my layout. I initially cut them all a little too wide, so then decided to trim a 1/2 inch off. So I think 3.5 by 4 is what I ended up with. So I have my 4 doors, and now I'm going to make the insets for my doors. So I'm going to trim some 1 by 3 3/4 inch strips of paper that are going to be the insets, just to give my doors some detail so that they do actually look like doors. And this layout does take a little bit longer than my typical like 20-minute layout, but I think it's because of all these little details and kind of figuring it out as I go. Because like I said, this is just in my head. I haven't tried it to see if I like it or if it works. So we'll see. It's an experiment. So now I'm making wreaths for my door, and I have some scraps of paper from the Christmas charm collection, and I have the custom cutting system circles, and from the smallest circle I'm cutting the inside with the red blade, and I'll set that aside, probably use it for something else. And then I'm going to take the medium circle and line it up over that circle I just cut and use the red blade again and cut from the inside, and I'm going to make a ring that's going to be a wreath. So I'm going to cut 3 more wreaths from this pattern paper, and just having to decide which side of the pattern paper I want to use. But cutting out those center circles, setting those aside, and then cutting the larger circle to make the wreath. I did a horrible job cutting that one, so luckily there's still enough paper here I can do another one. So now I can start building my background, and what I want to do with the doors is before I attach them, I want to ink each of the edges just so that you can see the different layers. So I'm using my Tim Holtz ink tool and some black soot ink just to ink around all the edges. And, as I'm doing this, I think I should move my background and I shouldn't have it right here. And then I thought, no, it'll be fine. And then you'll see in a minute, it won't be fine. Oops, there you go. Putting ink on your background. It will be fine because I'll be able to cover it up. But yes, be smart, Tiffany. Move your layout out of the way while you're inking all of your pieces. So just a little bit of ink, running it along the edges so that you'll see the different pieces and they'll really stand out when I adhere the doors. Okay, all done inking, so it's time to put my doors together. So I'm just going to put adhesive on the backs of these panels and then place them on 2 on each door on the larger rectangles. And so then it's the door with the insets. It's, at least in my mind, that's what it looks like. So you can see why this layout is so time consuming. It's not a difficult layout by any means, but just tedious with all these little persnickety things that you need to do. Okay, now it's time to line up those doors, and there's not quite enough room to fit all 4 across the layout, so I'm going to space them evenly and have the left hand and right side doors hang off the edge a little bit, and I'll just trim that. And at this point, I don't even think they look like doors, but once I get the wreaths on there, I think you get the idea. So now those are all on my layout, and I can just flip that over and trim that little excess door that hangs off the edge. It's just a tiny little sliver. So I'm just going to trim that off, but that cardstock is really thick, so it takes a couple of passes. And you could use your scissors too. So now I'm almost ready to add the wreaths, but I first want to just distress the edges a little bit, and my distresser is fighting with me in the container, so there we go, we got it. And so I'm just running this along the edge. This paper is thin, and because it's just a ring, it's a little tricky to do it because I don't want to tear the paper. But I'm just distressing that edge of the wreath a little bit just to give a little texture. So I'm going to distress each wreath and then place it on the door. And now I definitely think, well, at least in my mind, they look like doors. And I think the wreaths are so cute. So I just have to decide which side I want to use because I've got the double-sided patterns that are both really pretty. Okay, all 4 wreaths are on the door. Now, what does every wreath need? It needs a bow. So this is from a sticker pack that I had in my Christmas collection. I'm not sure which one it was from, but there was this garland with bows in it. So I'm just going to trim the bows from the garland and then stick them on the wreaths. Now, if you want to do this technique, but you didn't want to do the small wreaths, you could do one big door on the side of your layout and use a larger circle to do a bigger wreath. That would be really fun too. But there you have it. There's my 4 wreaths on my 4 doors. And now I'm going to work on my title. Just making sure I have all the letters to spell out wreath. This is a alphabet set that's been in my stash that I absolutely love, and I thought the turquoise was kind of a pretty addition to the layout. So I think now, oh yeah, I'm grabbing my variety mats from the Christmas Charm collection so I can find one that would be a good spot to put my title. So I'm just spelling the word wreath and I'm building it from the right to left. So I just have to think about it backwards, how to spell wreath. I'm not sure why I did this. I thought that it was going to be smaller and so I'd need to right justify it, but it's a big word. It filled up the whole card. So now I'm just going to handwrite the rest of that title, which is the lyric from the song. So I think it says, "Put a wreath upon your door." And I'm just writing that right on the journaling card. And I'm going to grab a couple of photo placeholders. Even though it's white on white, I still think it is nice so that I know where I'm putting my photos and I have a little mat for them. And I'm tucking that title under the doors a little bit and just creating a little grouping of the two photos and the title. And I thought I was going to use these clear stickles, but they ended up being clogged, so I swapped them out and grabbed my silver. And I'm just going to add some silver stickles just in a couple of little spots on the wreaths just to give them a little sparkle.